1, and I know folks are eager to get started. Good morning. It's so good to see everyone's faces on today in the new year. We're going to hold on just 1 second before we get started to make sure those who are running just a little behind get the opportunity to join us on time. So just give us a few more moments and we'll get started.
And then again, if people could have their videos off because the interpreter square is still really small.
Did you say videos off?
Off.
Yes, please. Everybody, if you're not presenting or speaking, would you please turn your video off so you're not sharing your video? And please keep yourself muted if you're not speaking.
So Ann Lewis is still on. Randy Rosenberger.
I'm going through manually and stopping some folks.
Thank you.
All right. I think we're doing okay now.
I think there's one more.
Oh, there we go.
All righty, then we'll go ahead and get started. So everyone's clear, I'm going to make sure to record this message, this meeting. Record this meeting. Again, good morning. It's good to see your faces or your names. Good to be back in community with the great folks that are doing great work. Welcome to 2021. Happy New Year. For those of you who I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet, I am Davin Brown, the Vice President of Student Services here at the college, here to create space and opportunity for you all to share your feedback, your interests, and your thoughts as it relates to our reopening plan. Before we get started, like to remind folks to stay on mute if you're not talking. I'd also like to share my great appreciation to Evelyn Redder, Valerie Tread, Tracy Gomez, and Caitlin Collignon for assisting me with capturing y'all's feedback, y'all's insight, and the sharing today. In addition to today's session for our employee stakeholder groups, we will also be hosting a student listening session next Thursday, January 21st, to make sure we're able to secure the feedback from our students, right? Understanding that the insight, interest, expertise, and thoughts of all of our key stakeholders will be absolutely critical as we move toward the development of this plan. Also like to share that I understand today that there are likely very many questions that exist. If you noticed in the description of the session and our flex information, this session is dedicated to capturing your insight, as there are still very many questions that we do not have answers to. But that is why we've identified ways to be able to solicit your insight, your thoughts, and ideas through today's listening session, as well as a website. Caitlin will be assisting with adding throughout the course of our session today, the web link through our chat feature. So whether you decide to share information here in this space through chat, or whether you opt to share information later on through our website, that will be available to you, right? So that you're also aware, these listening sessions are taking place across our entire district during Flex session with Frank Kobayashi, the VPI at American River College, facilitating theirs on today. Teresa Tenna, the VPA at CRC, facilitated their listening session yesterday. I'm doing today's listening session for our glorious college. And then Monica Pacto, our VPI Folsom Lake College, will be facilitating the listening session tomorrow, all for the purpose of gathering the information from our constituents, our key stakeholders, to be able to assist us with identifying recommendations for moving forward. So as I stated, the purpose of this session is to listen, is to capture your insight, your thoughts, your considerations as best as possible. And so I'd like to get started by sharing my screen to give you a little brief information before we get into the thick of securing your your insight. So I've shared with
Jasmine,
you
can I ask
already
you-
the
Jasmine, I'm
purpose.
sorry, can I ask you real quick? I'm apologize. Did you want did you want us to record? Oh, it looks like someone did hit record.
I am recording it.
Apologize.
Yes. So the purpose of this listening session has already been shared with you all to capture your thoughts, ideas, and your insight. More than welcome to engage in some dialogue once we've been able to get through the brief sharing of this information. However, it's critical that if you have any thoughts or ideas, that you put those in the chat so that we have a recording to be able to capture those and be able to flush through that as best as possible, okay? We'll also cover briefly our timelines, what it is we're working with. Also want to be mindful to honor thoughts and ideas around guiding principles. What themes and values do we believe are critical in honoring as we work together to move toward the development of a reopening plan, and then covering some key issues, some general issues, some issues with respect to instruction, some with respect to student services, some with respect to operations and our facilities, and then create space and opportunity to listen. And then from there, we will highlight a little bit of our next steps. So moving forward, share the purpose of our listening session so that you all are aware. Our charge as the team, myself, Teresa Tena, Monica Pacto, and Frank Kobayashi, is to identify recommendations based on the feedback that we get through the website, through these listening sessions, and through the listening sessions for our students to be able to assist with the development of a plan. So the purpose right where we are right now in the phase of the process is we are in the recommendations phase opposed to the operationalizations phase, okay? So that's our charge right now. Our stakeholder feedback is inclusive of our employee groups as well as our students. And that today's session will allow you to provide feedback. But as I mentioned earlier, we do have a website. Caitlin will consistently place the website link in our chat for you to access at your convenience to be able to share your thoughts, your ideas, and your interests with respect to the key issues. And if there is an issue that we have not covered, there is an option for you to indicate other, for you to share your feedback there. All righty. Now, with respect to the timeline, it's January 2021. During January 2021, 3 things are taking place. Our stakeholder feedback, today's session is an example of that. Identifying what our key issues are. We've worked to identify some key issues, hoping that you all will be able to assist us with informing how to address those key issues or identifying any key issues we may have missed. And in January 2021, we'll also develop an initial feedback report. And that feedback report will be used to help inform the recommendations that are made. It's important that you all know that the recommendations that are made will be based on the feedback that we are able to secure. So the information that you all share with us will be taken into consideration as we develop these recommendations. Understanding that some will be consistent, some will be more in the weeds and operational, and some will be more high level. But we're going to do our very best to create space and opportunity for you to share your thoughts and then put that in a comprehensive document that is consistent with our next steps. Our next steps would include February 21, which is a refined report that is inclusive of the recommendations, right, that we've been able to develop based on your feedback and the development of a framework. All of the information that we secure through the listening sessions, all of the feedback that we secure through the website, again, will help to frame the recommendations, which will lead to the framework that our comprehensive reopening plan will be based on. So it's very important that we reiterate your voice is key in helping us to develop what our reopening plan next steps will be. And then spring 2021, that's when the operationalization piece comes into play. So right now in January, we're gathering feedback, we're identifying key issues, and then we're working on the development of an initial feedback report that will help us to develop recommendations in a framework that will eventually lead to operationalization recommendations later on this semester. So guiding principles. Guiding principles, as I mentioned before, are those values, are those principles that we believe are critical and assisting us with moving toward the development of a comprehensive reopening plan. And so some of the guiding principles listed on before you today are just thoughts and ideas that initially were tossed out, understanding that quite a few folks will want us to implement a guiding principle that's rooted in safety. Others will be very clear that whatever it is that we do and how we approach this work, we need to do so through an equity lens. A guiding principle might also be a commitment to consistent communication and transparency. Another one is stakeholder inclusion, which is why we're having these listening sessions. What I'm going to ask you to do right now is in the chat, if there are guiding principles that you feel should be considered as key with moving this work forward, if you can indicate those in the chat so that we can capture those and then take a look at what those are looking like across our colleges, where some consistency lies, what are some, obvious, that's something that we should include in our guiding principles, or what are those, we hadn't even thought about that. Let's make sure we capture that. We're going to ask that those guiding principles, as best as you can, be limited to 1 or 2 words, because based on the information that you share, we'll be able to extract and develop a more succinct and clear statement with respect to the guiding principles as we are building the recommendations and moving toward the establishment of a framework. So I'm gonna give you all a little bit of time to be able to process, to think about some values and some principles that you think are important in this work, and highlighting those and sharing them in the chat, and then we'll be able to capture those and add them with respect to consideration, okay? Now the good stuff. It's all good, but the good stuff. So there is so much to be covered, so much to be covered when we think about a comprehensive reopening plan. And so when we think about a comprehensive reopening plan, we've been able to identify a few key headers that will assist us in identifying what key issues should be taken into consideration as we develop this plan. And so those 4 key headers that we've identified are, what are some of our general needs at the college, right? Then what do we know are our instructional needs at the college? Then the other ones, what do we know are our student services needs at the college? And then what do we know are our operational needs at the college? And while these are our key headers, there are key issues that fall within these key headers, and we're going to cover those now. And you'll notice that through the website link, you'll be able to identify or share what your feedback is based on the specific key issue, right, under the header. So for instance, when we talk about general issues, we know a key issue of interest may be, what is the status of the virus or the vaccine, safety and hygiene, communication, equity, right? COVID compliance as it relates to the CDC. Another key issue will be issues of returning to work. What will that look like, right? Will it be hybrid? Will it be completely on ground? How will we manage that? And then also, how will we gain access safely to both our office or our campus, right? So those are key issues with respect to our general interest. Now, when we think about our instructional interests, some key issues that we identified were, what do online operations look like versus on-ground operations? So securing your feedback based on that. What does faculty preparedness look like with respect to instruction, right? Does that include professional development with respect to teaching courses or managing your instructional responsibilities in a post-pandemic world, things of that nature. And also another key issue within instruction is instructional programs. So whether it's through our chat feature in today's session or through our website, where that Caitlin is frequently sharing in our chat, you'll be able to share your thoughts and ideas there so that we capture it and include it as we push through. Pardon me, got a little tickle in my throat. As we push through identifying those really important pieces of this puzzle in preparation for reopening. Moving on to student services. Key issues within student services. What do online student services look like versus on-ground student services? Maybe you have thoughts or ideas around a hybrid. What are some things that we need to take into consideration within student services as it relates to student resources, right? As it relates to student impact, right? We're talking about things like access to technology, building of community. We know within student services, we have quite a few community-based cohort experiences. We have categorical programs. We know that building and maintaining community is important to students, and the impact that that has on their success is critical. So the things that we should take into consideration in a comprehensive reopening plan with respect to access to student resources, or even the impact on students being able to access information for admissions and records or financial aid, or the impact that it has on our DSPS students or our veteran students. You have thoughts and opinions and ideas about that, please feel free again to add them in the chat. We are capturing them, and also feel free to utilize our website. And then finally, our last general header is our operational piece. And some key issues that we've identified in our operational piece is, again, what do online operations look like versus on-ground operations? What does our preparation time look like in a return to work environment post-pandemic, right? What will our facilities use look like in a post-pandemic world? And then what does our funding and our use of financial resources look like in a post-pandemic world? Understanding that life as we know it, we would like to be able to return to as close as possible, but that may very well not be the case. So what are some things that need to shift? What are your thoughts and ideas? What are your questions? What are your interests? Making sure you cover that and share that with us today. And so here is a quick a cheat sheet, if you will, that highlights those key issues that falls under each header. Again, our general key issues, our instructional key issues, our student services key issues, as well as our operational key issues. These are the individual key issues within those areas that we're asking you to provide some insight on. And again, our goal is not to limit your thoughts and ideas to these areas. You'll notice on the website link, if you have interests or thoughts and ideas that fall outside of these areas that you like to share, you have the option of other to indicate that through our web link. You can also do that in the chat feature to be able to allow us to capture your thoughts and ideas. And so I'm gonna pause there to give you all some time to utilize the chat feature and add your thoughts and ideas with respect to these general key issues, to be able to capture as much insight as we possibly can. I know we're seeing some comments about how all constituency groups should be involved in the process itself. Grateful for that inquiry, grateful for those comments, even more grateful that you all are interested in that. I'd like to make sure that we're all operating from the same narrative, as we are all in this work together, right? Which is the key reason for why we're hosting today's listening session. This is an example of how all key constituency groups can be a part of the process. Understanding that not everyone will find themselves in a place where they're serving on a task force or a committee, but that doesn't mean that their voice, their opinions, and their thoughts are not will not be heard. This is an example of how we can secure the insight of everyone. Also understanding, as I shared at the beginning of today's session, the four of us, myself and the other VPs that have been tasked with identifying the key issues and the recommendations for moving forward, are relying on your insight. We understand that we are not content experts across the board in this work, so your input is critical. Now, what comes of these recommendations may very well include how do we identify other ways to include our stakeholders in this work, and that all will be revealed through the recommendations. So if you have thoughts and ideas about that, we encourage you to share those so that we can include them in our initial feedback report, where the recommendations that you all make are shared. But I want to be clear, our goal is to keep everyone or to have everyone as involved as we reasonably can, to make sure that we're capturing the thoughts and insight and needs of all of our constituency groups. Okay. I know in my sharing feature, I cannot take a look at the chat. So Caitlin is assisting me with answering any questions that you all might have. I think I've given you a little time to share your feedback with respect to these key issues, and we can move on to our next slide, which is next steps. So we talked a little bit about stakeholder feedback. It is my hope and my colleagues' hope, who are also on this amazing team who's doing really amazing work. I'm really committed to working in strong partnership with you all to secure as much feedback as we possibly can. So again, reminding you all to utilize the website, encouraging you to share with your students information about the student listening sessions, right? So that we can get as many students at our student listening session, which is scheduled for next Thursday, January 21st at 5 p.m. Getting as many students there as possible so that we can secure their feedback, their interests, their thoughts and ideas, really listen to what it is that they share, and then a review of that feedback. Next up, initial feedback report, January 31st. That is when our initial feedback report is due. It will be inclusive of what our communication plan consists of, some assumptions, some questions and concerns that we've been able to secure from you all, what key issues and guiding principles exist that we've been able to secure from you all. And then in February, a more refined report that's inclusive of our recommendations and our framework, with the goal of moving toward identifying ways to operationalize in spring 2021. I have some other questions that are coming through. Again, I want to be really clear, as I shared at the beginning of this session today, there are likely to be many questions. Where we are right now is we are at the 30,000 foot. We are high level right now, where we will begin to peel back the layers and get more in the thick of the weeds is through the feedback that we're able to secure from our flex listening sessions and the information that you provide through the website. So while there may very well be questions that you have, there are likely answers to those questions that we do not have yet. And I put the emphasis on yet because we are really just getting started in this work. having just got started to get together last month, but we are working diligently to be able to review your inquiries and your questions and your feedback to be able to prepare answers from those that are informed by experts in the field as it relates to the questions that you all ask. So when you have questions that are related, say, to vaccines and mask mandates and campus access and things of that nature, the feedback that we are able to secure from you all, the thoughts and the concerns, will help to inform the direction that we go, right? Some of those decisions, many of those decisions are not made yet. This is an opportunity for us to secure your feedback and include you in the process. Will there be local level planning? The quick and dirty answer to that is absolutely. That is where the operationalization piece comes into play. We cannot have a team of folks across 4 colleges, right, that doesn't take into consideration the individual needs of each college. So will there be the opportunity for local level planning and discussions? Absolutely. We are a college made up of many departments, many divisions. As the Vice President of Student Services, I have no idea how Angie Lambert's team and math instructors may move forward with instructional plans. That is going to require the insight and expertise of those content experts. The same can be said for nursing. The same can be said for our vets. The same can be said for financial aid. So where we can create space and opportunity for folks to share their thoughts, their ideas, their plans, absolutely, we will create space and opportunity for that at the local level so that we are doing our due diligence to be able to move toward operationalization in a way that is comfortable and safe for all people. There are some questions about whether there will be a required vaccine, mask mandate, things of that nature. Those are questions that many people have. Again, questions that we do not have answers to right now, right? As you all know, many of us operate within collective bargaining agreements and have union representation. Those are questions that have to be managed through those partners in this work when we begin to talk about vaccinations and mandates and things of that nature. But it's also important to understand our goal in this work is to return to our colleges in a healthy way and in a safe way, right? And so we'll take the insight that you all are providing and the recommendations and the feedback that you all are providing to help to get us to our landing place when it comes to decisions around vaccinations, decisions around mask mandates, decisions around how we address issues of non-compliance when it comes to the utilizations of masks, if that becomes an issue, things of that nature. If time permits, we will create space and opportunity for you all to ask questions. But again, I have to be honest with you. This session is dedicated to listening and securing your feedback. You can pose the question. It will be captured as a question. It will be captured in a way that allows us to be able to identify answers, but that doesn't mean that I will have an answer for you today because there are there are many questions that we do not have answers for today. Today's session is dedicated to securing your feedback to help to inform our next steps and moving forward, okay? And so that, is the brief information that I had to share with you all. I'll create space and opportunity for you all to chit chat and ask questions that you may have.
I have a question.
Hi, Martha. Good morning.
Good morning. What decision has been made regarding summer school? Will we be returning to campus for the summer session or not?
That a final decision on that has not been made, Martha, but I assure you, once a decision with respect to when we are returning to the college in whatever iteration, that will be shared.
Could you give us an idea of when that decision will be made?
I cannot give you an idea of when that decision will be made, but what I can share with you is once the decision is made, understanding that that is a decision that falls outside of my purview and the purview of my colleagues serving on this team. But once that decision is made, we will absolutely communicate. The goal is to communicate any decisions that have impact on how it is that we do our business at the college in a manner that allows us to be productive and efficient. And you also having to understand a lot of those decisions they have to be informed by the manner in which the nation, our state, is managing the response to the pandemic, how folks are responding to vaccinations, things of that nature, right? And so it is absolutely an important question, but it's one that's so much larger than Los Rios. It's contingent upon quite a few other variables.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Hi, Devin. It's Belinda.
Hi, Belinda. How are you today?
Surviving. 8 a.m. meetings aren't my thing, but
But you're here.
I'm here because it's important. I want to reiterate what I also know that Julie Oliver and Jason Newman have filed at the district level. The lack of representation of both classified and faculty union and senates on this committee is really problematic, and it becomes very top down as opposed to us being able to inform things in process. And so I really hope this committee rethinks the participation, because if we want to have robust engagement and have multiple onboarding mechanisms for feedback, it has to include the representative bodies.
Well, I will absolutely take that into consideration. I'm going to encourage you to share that feedback if you haven't already. I haven't had the opportunity to take a look at the chat. As you know, facilitating a Zoom session and managing chat is not something that I'm well versed in. And we also have the website. But I'd also like to share, it's the narrative by which we operate is critical in the work that we do. It's critical in how we approach the work. And so I've shared multiple times the purpose of this session is to secure the feedback from folks. The information that you all provide will help determine our next steps. The next steps don't necessarily mean that there will be absence of union representation, right? The goal of this session is to secure your thoughts, ideas, and interest and concerns so that we can do our very best to be as inclusive as we possibly can. We are at the onset of this process. And so the onset of this process doesn't mean that our key stakeholders won't be involved. It means that we're doing our due diligence to secure the interest that you all have so that we can best represent your interests. So I appreciate your sharing. It's not the first time that it has come up. I believe that folks are very well aware of our need to engage our union and our Senate leaders in conversation. And I'm pretty sure and pretty confident that we will come up with ways to be able to do that. So I just wanted to make sure I spoke to that, and thank you for sharing.
Gavin, can
Yeah,
I make
Dr. Brown, this is Tom Berg.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing
I
amazing.
have
How
a
are you?
question. I have a question because I'm kind of disconcerted by this entire process here.
Okay.
We've been developing detailed operational plans since last summer. And all of those things had their guiding principles all the way down to the nitty-gritty details and budgets and contingency plans and everything else. They've gone up through divisions, departments, all the way up through campus, and then been shot down at district with absolutely no comment. So 10 months later, I'm taking this meeting as district wants to reinvent the wheel, again, without any guidance. So I want to know that those approved plans, operational plans, and contingency plans that have been shot down from district are going to be included as part of your feedback? Or are you asking me to start all over again and write it up?
So I
And
think it'd be
that's-
important to
that's-
clarify. Are you speaking specifically to your department and your division?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And I know there are other departments and divisions that have gone through similar exercises.
Okay.
Okay. So it just seems like, I want to know, have the pre-approved things already been thrown in as part of your information gathering?
So I will say to you, our information gathering is not complete. That's the first thing. Our information gathering is not complete. The second thing that I will say to you is it sounds like the contingency planning and the conversations that have taken place with respect to your specific department and your specific division may have been held by your division's leadership. Space and opportunity as best as possible to secure, recommendations, thoughts, insight, things of that nature will absolutely happen. Now, can I speak confidently to whether or not the contingency plan that you all have developed in your effort to be more responsive at the onset of our closure and the pandemic? I can't answer that question for you specifically, but what I can say is that we are doing our very best to take all of the thoughts and ideas and recommendations into consideration. So if in fact there are contingency plans that have been shared with respect to your area, your division, how you all believe we should operate, whether it's in our normal operational functions, whether it's fully remote, whether it's a hybrid of that, I'd encourage you to share that information so that it is absolutely captured. I see that someone commented in the chat, we need patience, grace, and consistency. And I appreciate that. I believe it was Nadine. I appreciate the comment. And I'll tell you why I appreciate the comment. It's important for everyone on this call, the 288 of us gathered here today. And I have to say, I'm so grateful that so many folks decided to tap into the call today. It shows how committed you all are to doing what's best for the college and for our students. None of us have operated.
Sorry, I forgot about this meeting.
I'm sorry. None of us have operated in a space or had an experience where we reopened the college post-pandemic, right? So there are multiple moving parts. There are multiple things that we need to consider. So remembering that operating in grace and patience is critical and important. And then when there are those times where you feel like your voice isn't being heard, be confident and comfortable enough to share that, whether it's through this session or the feedback, so that the folks who are at the decision-making table, right, take those into consideration as we're moving toward the development of this plan to get us back to the college in a way that accommodates your needs, that accommodates our students' needs, that accommodates your colleagues' needs. I believe Gail had a question just before you. I want to make sure I honor her decision or her interest in sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Devin. I actually have more of a suggestion, well, two suggestions really, maybe to help advance the conversation. And one is one that I had mentioned in the chat, and I think was echoed by other folks. In addition to the district level planning team, we probably need to set up some kind of mechanism at the college for reopening planning. And I don't know exactly what that would look like, but I think that's, and to the extent to which it needs to be a totally new group, or whether it loops in, existing groups like some of our standing committees or the college council or what have you, I think, that we would need to have some conversations about that. So that's suggestion number one. Suggestion number two is that trying to gather feedback from an entire college in one listening session is impossible. quite honestly. I mean, there's been some really good comments in the chat and, some good questions and issues that have been verbalized. But I think this is an opportunity to lean on our research office to gather much more robust feedback and allow, and we would be in a position to be able to organize that feedback and to try to do some sense making of it, and then, help to develop some type of action plan, coordinating with the constituency groups and unions and other stakeholders. So just 2 suggestions to put on the radar.
Devin, Pam Pose was next with her hand raised, and then Lori Petit, and then Craig Davis.
Hey, everyone. So I'm going to echo what Gail said, and I've actually been saying this to various people for a while. We need a new structure to deal with this. This is not, I don't think any of our normal committees can handle this. And I mentioned in the chat, I'm just going to say it again, it's extremely problematic that administrators have been the only ones on the committee. So I would say that we need a new committee formed ASAP with the ability for other people, for different constituency groups in different areas of campus to have input. And that needs to form right away, and to continue to have the administrators have these conversations where other people are not included. You're laying the foundation for how we're going to handle this. And it's not a strong foundation if only the administrators are doing this, and it's going to take it in directions that we may or may not want to go. But until you bring in everybody and do it quickly, it's going to cause problems. And I was on the committee, where there was a survey where they talked about the fact that trust in the administration at least SCC is not very high amongst various constituency groups. And I was on that committee, and this is another example of why that has happened in the past. And for something so critical that actually affects people living and dying is only being run by administrators is really problematic. So I would move, I'm not saying that in an official sense, but I would strongly urge you all to form a new committee by next week, for example. I don't want, all this listening is great, but I want action, and it needs to happen more quickly, but thoughtfully. And if you don't include the other constituency groups from the beginning, it's going to cause real problems. So that's about all I want to say, but it needs to happen soon. And it needs to be not just talk. I want action, and I want real outcomes to come from this. We always talk about outcomes, needs to happen soon. And then you
Can I interrupt real
in,
quick and ask
Sure.
who's speaking? Because we don't know who's speaking.
Pamela Pose, I'm a librarian.
Thank you.
So thanks. Anyway, so that is all that I want to say, is that it needs to stop being just administrators, and that needs to happen now. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing, Pam. Lori.
Good morning, Davin.
Good morning, Lori.
Hi, thank you so much for your time today, and I really appreciate your role. I want to thank you for your role in this process. I know that your job is not an easy one.
And can I also ask who you are as well? It's difficult because we don't know who's
Sure.
speaking, and that would be helpful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. This is Lori Petit. I'm communication faculty and the Academic Senate president. Thank you. So, Davin, I did want to thank you so much for your role in this process and for hosting this session today. And I did want to echo some of the previous comments, Belinda's comments about representation of the constituency groups. And I think that we have, you and I have talked about this. I know we've advanced these concerns across the district, so I know you're already aware of them, but I did want to echo that because it's a significant one. In terms of constituency representation, and specifically, I'm here to represent faculty as well. And there are, as we know, unique concerns. And so I think Gail and other people have mentioned also the ability for the local colleges to have some role in organizing information. And I think that because some of the concerns are so department and course level specific, that the feedback could be well organized, coming from specific departments and then perhaps by divisions. And so that might be a way of just making a more coherent body of considerations to be explored. And then finally, I'd also like to see us examining the lessons learned from K through 12 schools and other colleges and universities that are in the reopening phase or have reopened, because I think that we need to know how well it's going, what are some of the challenges that they have faced, how they've responded to it, good, bad, and otherwise, and take some cues from that to help inform whatever implementation we roll out. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Lori. I always appreciate your insight. Craig Davis.
Well, what's up?
What's up? Good to see your picture.
Yeah, I got a helmet on because it's going to be a crash. So morning, everyone. This is Craig Davis. I'm a geography professor and also the chair of chairs at the moment. I don't have a whole lot to add. I think that, the comments that we've heard from the last few people, I want to reiterate that. But I don't know, Davin, how you doing? Because I find it hard to believe that we've got 4 people in the district that are supposed to figure out how we're supposed to reopen back up. So, I mean, it's just such a Herculean task. And I know we are a bureaucracy and sometimes we get bogged down in committees, but at some point I feel like people like Tom and other departments that have, talked about how they can do things, lab work, we've got a lot of that stuff already out there, and somehow we need to compile that. And how we do it, I'm not sure what's the best way, but we're behind. Whether we open or start to phase open in the fall we're gonna be open at some point in the future, and we got to start planning for it. And arguably, we should have been planning earlier than this. So, to reiterate maybe what Pam said, we need to hit the ground running. I don't know the best way to do that, but we got to get on the ball here. I'm gonna put as many cliches in here as I can, but it feels like this is urgent, and we need more people at the table than just you 4. So I appreciate your work, and I think we're gonna have a lot of people that are gonna want to bring things to the table. So thanks.
You know what, Craig? I appreciate you sharing that, and I want to take the time to say to everyone on the call, what are we at? We're at 287. I've been at City long enough to know what our community values, right? To know what our interests are, to know what kind of excites us, and to know what kind of hurts. And so none of your comments surprise me today. I always appreciate the honest and forthright sharing, which always encourages me to be honest and forthright when I communicate with y'all. That being said, it's important that you all understand, we know that for folks, creating a plan in isolation is, as you described, a Herculean task, Craig. That is not our goal. That is not our goal. Our goal is to figure out the best way to come together to get this work done. I want to reiterate again, I understand where everyone is. A lot of folks have quite a bit of interest, high anxiety, let's hurry up and move. But we also know that in order to do things right and to do things effectively and efficiently, we got to be able to secure some information, do some information gathering. That is what this is about today. We are gathering information with respect to your interests, your thoughts, your ideas, the work that you've done previously to be able to inform our next steps. Our next steps don't necessarily mean that the 4 VPs on this task today will be doing this alone. It's very important that you all understand that. Does that mean that we will be doing it in isolation? And so I understand why that is of great concern to you all. But as I mentioned just a few moments ago, I've been at City long enough to understand your interests, your passions, your hurts, your worries, and what creates, angst for us, and that is lack of inclusion. The four of us have had conversations about being mindful to include your thoughts and your feedback and your interest and your previous work, which is how we came up with the opportunities for you all to share, so that everything that you are sharing now will help to inform what our next steps look like. So in the spirit of grace and patience, as Nadine referenced earlier, in the spirit of Belinda's request to be more inclusive, in the spirit of Pam Pose's request to make sure all constituency groups are included. We hear you. We see you. It is not our goal for the four of us to come up with a plan and then say, go, be one and do this. That is not our plan at all. So I'm going to encourage you all to give us a little grace and a little patience. Hold us accountable in this work. Those of you who know me know that I am not afraid of being held accountable. Hold us accountable in this work. Share your thoughts and ideas. Feel free to communicate that. My request is that they come through the website, not because I don't want to have a conversation with y'all. I appreciate the conversations, especially right now as we're not able to engage in the physical space, but so that it allows us to capture everything in one space so that we can take a look at our interests, our individual interests at City, as well as our shared interests across the district, so that we can identify what is most pressing, what is most concerning, and how we can best represent your needs and your interests as faculty, your needs and your interests as classified professionals, the needs and the interests of our managers, the needs and the interests of our students, through an equity lens, through a lens that is inclusive, through a lens that prioritizes safety, and for us, through a lens that prioritizes community, because that is what is of our greatest values at City, the ability to come together in community and support our students and our colleagues in the best way possible. We have about 8 minutes left. I see Wendy Gomez's hand is raised. Hi, Wendy. Always good to see your face.
Hello.
Hi.
This is Wendy. I'm the nurse in health services, and I'm watching this chat, and I'm also taking notes. I want to let everyone know that the nurses are working as a team across the district. We have a district-wide director, Dee Dee Gillum, who is very knowledgeable about pandemics. She went through H1N1 in the past with the public health department and has extensive experience with this. As well, we also have a physician that we have contracted with specifically to help us with the health concerns of our campuses. And each of our nurses, I'm really responding to Carl Saval's question about whether or not public health is going to be involved in this. All of us nurses are certified public health nurses to begin with. But yes, we are talking to the public health department and collaborating to get things done. As far as vaccinations, we don't know that yet. We're in the works and talking to them about that. And we will definitely be putting out announcements where to get your vaccine, or if we're going to be giving it, et cetera, as soon as we know. I think information is really, really helpful to keep people from thinking that, that the health department isn't involved in this. I want everybody to know that we are very intimately involved in this.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that sharing, Wendy. And if I could share, we also understand the importance of having our medical experts a part of the conversation as we manage through. Again, reminding you all that we are not content experts in all of the moving parts related to a reopening an institution of higher education post-pandemic. So we're trying to find the best way to capture the insight, representation, voice, and expertise to get us to a safe and healthy reopening situation that includes everyone everyone's thoughts and ideas. I see we got Dr. Crumpton hands up. Good morning, Dr. Crumpton. How you doing today?
Hey, good morning, Devin, and Happy New Year. Thanks for
Happy
taking
New
my
Year.
question. I just have one comment, and
Okay.
that is, of all the things I've heard, I have not heard what the goal of reopening is. Now, that may sound really kind of cheeky, but what I mean by that is, are we reopening to go to 100% ground classes? Are we reopening to decide what the new configuration should look like? I think I would offer that that before we think about the how-tos, that we think about the what is. What is it that we're going to be? Who are we going to be? This is an opportunity, in my view, to look at how to restructure things in a way that meets the new normal, because we're not going back as we once were. At least I hope not, right? I think that we've learned some things. For example, we've learned that managers and administrators can really work efficiently remotely. Thank God we recognize that. So I just would offer that the thinking, I would suggest that the thinking start with, what's the goal of reopening, right? So that the procedure, however the process happens, it's all oriented to that space. Now, I saw someone's comment about efficiency. Efficiency of what? I would stay at that come up from that 30,000 level for a moment and go all the way up to 100,000 and say, if we had an opportunity to reimagine Sacramento City College, what would that look like, given what we know now? So I appreciate all the work that's happening. I trust that the inclusion is going to happen and collaboration, because this college is not going to not let that happen. So stay well, everybody. And thanks again, Devin, for all you're doing.
Thank you. You know what, Deborah, I appreciate you bringing up that point. You're absolutely right. You are spot on. Where in the conversations that have been had, the reality is a return to life as we knew it is likely not the case. There have been several conversations, not even specific to the team of VPs that are working on securing the recommendations for the development of the plan, but in other spaces, the reality that technology has become our friend, how we serve the needs of our community, whether it's faculty, whether it's classified, whether our students can look different and can be successful and supportive in a variety of ways. And so I think where we are right now is not wed to the idea of returning how we once operated, but how do we utilize this pandemic, right? This situation to be able to inform how to better support and operate as a college in new and different ways. And we are absolutely thinking about that. We're also absolutely at the forefront is what does this middle ground look like? Right? If we know that our students do well with accessing services virtually and some would better benefit online, what does that gray area look like, or that yellow area look like? What does a combination of that look like, so that we make a commitment to providing services that are not cookie cutter for our students or for our constituency groups, but that serve the needs of various folks. So I truly appreciate your comment. Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands raised, and we have about 2 more minutes left. I'm going to encourage you, if you continue to have questions, to place them in the chat. I see Pam Pose's hand is raised again. Pam?
Hi, this is again Pam Pose, librarian. So we know that you all are in a tough spot, and that you're running against district and everything like that. But I would sort of like to know what the next step is. What I know that it's hard to do that based on all the information, but I really would strongly encourage you all to form a committee ASAP to get this, to get input from different groups from the ground up, because until we do that and it's only administrators, then it's going to be really problematic. So again, thanks. And that's all.
You're more than welcome. I appreciate you. I heard you again. And if you all remember, not sure, more than willing to share this with you with respect to what our next steps are. So we talked about where we are right now, stakeholder feedback. The next steps will be informed by the recommendations that you all provide through our sessions and our feedback. I hear your urgency, Pam. I do not disagree with you, but I have to be honest in saying, if we did not take into consideration your thoughts and your feedback and include those as we framed our next steps, we'd be having a totally different conversation. Right? So I get the urgency, but also want to honor and recognize the need to secure the feedback from you all to help inform our next steps. The next step after this, after we secure the feedback, is the development of our feedback report. That's inclusive of the communication plan that you all help inform. That's inclusive of the concerns and the questions and assumptions that you all share. The leading one that you all have shared is inclusivity and the need to move urgently. Understand that, right? Highlighting our key issues and the guiding principles that you all have helped to develop so that we can move toward a more refined and comprehensive recommendations toward the end of next month to be able to move things faster. That does not mean that out of the recommendations that are shared in the initial feedback report, that some traction is not secured. It absolutely, and that allows us to move forward a bit more quickly. It does not mean that at all. But what's absolutely critical, I like to reiterate, is our need to gather y'all's information ASAP to inform what our next steps look like. We have, we're over time, and so I want to respect folks, folks' time. I do have a little bit of time before I get to my next session, and I see 2 hands raised, so I'll take those last 2 questions. And again, thoughts and ideas, please share them in the chat so we capture them, so we're able to peel back the layers, then be able to answer your questions and move with urgency as we know we need. Belinda, what you got?
So when you complete your report, I would like to actually recommend that you highlight 2 things. One,
okay,
our collective bargaining issues, and 2, what should require collegial consultation. Because in listening to the feedback, not just from you, but CRC session yesterday, I think by highlighting that at the forefront allows for specific actions to be taken by representative groups.
Okay.
Instead of making the assumption that it's just going to happen, because I would hate for there to be something, for example, as the chief negotiator, right, for a collective bargaining issue to be said that this is how we're going to do it. And then as the union, if my members don't back it, for me to say, no, it's not going to happen. So I just want to recommend that you highlight particular purview areas in your report out.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate the insight always. Martha, you're our last one up. What you got for me?
I was just hoping that there's a way to capture the text of the chat and put it in a document so we can read it, because there's no way that we can follow all of that and also listen to you. So if that could be sent out to us as a separate document, that would be really helpful.
Okay, I'll talk to the PD folks about, what that looks like. We're absolutely, I've got some rock star folks. Again, shout out to Valerie Chwet, Evelyn Redder, Tracy Gomez, and Caitlin Collignon for being my right-hand folks in assisting with capturing your feedback through Google Docs, through notes, through bullet points, through chat. I assure you that we've covered all of our bases to capture what you all have shared verbally here through note-taking, through a recording of this session, and also through capturing through a Google Doc that drills down on our key issues, your interests, your concerns, and your inquiry, and also through our website that will allow us to capture your individual feedback. And so I'll connect with Tracy on the back end to see if that's at all possible to be able to share out with you all. I know we're 3 minutes over time. I know that there is never enough time to be able to have these conversations. I know you are all interested and committed in doing the great work. I appreciate you all so much. I truly do. I want to thank you all for your commitment. I want to thank you all for your patience. I want to thank you all for your expression of your need of urgency. And I also like to thank you all for being confident and comfortable enough to insert your insight and your feedback here today so that we can do what's absolutely best, not only for you all as members of our employee groups, but for our students and our college. I wish you all a great day, happy convocation, and welcome back to the college. See you soon.